Julian's white whale, the girl who got away, was back in the country. The moment Chloe caught them embracing in his office, she knew it was her cue to leave. She was trying to be sensible about it, but as they were closing the door, a large hand suddenly reached out and gripped the frame. A flicker of helplessness crossed Julian's face. "Did you forget what I taught you about how to handle people bothering your husband?" he asked. He pulled Chloe in front of Mia, took her hand, and used it to deliver a sharp slap across the other woman's face. "Targeting a married man? Have you no shame? Today I'm sharing a touching story about love, misunderstandings, and second chances." Chloe secretly loved Julian for years and agreed to a marriage of convenience, believing his heart belonged to someone else. Julian, on the other hand, hid his true feelings because he was afraid of losing her. Their story is filled with rumors, a scheming third party, and painful misunderstandings. This story carries an important lesson about communication and courage in love. Let's dive in. Later that evening, Julian sent a text. "There's a gala tonight, so I'll be back a bit late. Go to sleep first. Don't wait up for me." Chloe stared at the chat window for a long time, her mind going blank. Just that morning, her best friend, Sarah, had messaged her with the news that Julian's first love had returned today. Sarah had urged her to come up with a plan, but Chloe didn't know what she could possibly do. There was no room for her in Julian's heart. He was likely somewhere right now, pouring his soul out to the woman he truly loved. After a long silence, she slowly typed a simple, "Okay," and sent it. The water heater must have been broken because the water running from the tap was freezing. The icy stream slid over every inch of her skin, making her shiver uncontrollably. "It's for the best," she thought. "If my body is cold enough, maybe I won't feel the chill in my heart." She showered quickly and collapsed onto the bed, burying her head in the pillow, desperate for sleep. She tossed and turned for hours until, in the middle of the night, she heard faint footsteps coming up the stairs. The door clicked open. Julian stepped into the room, moving quietly. He didn't usually come here. Why wasn't he in his own room? He smelled strongly of alcohol as he sat down gently on the edge of her bed. The moonlight hit his flushed cheeks, making his handsome features look even more captivating. "Chloe," he murmured, his hand reaching out to stroke her face. His touch was incredibly light, as if he were afraid of waking her. "You're back?" she whispered grozily. "Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you," he replied. The next morning he withdrew his hand with total indifference, as if nothing had ever happened. Chloe shook her head slightly, feeling completely drained of energy, and closed her eyes again. "Go back to sleep," he said, tucking the blanket around her before quietly stepping out. The door shut slowly, cutting off the light from the hallway. Their marriage was purely a business arrangement, devoid of any real affection. Or rather, Julian felt nothing for her. Chloe, on the other hand, had loved him for a very long time. Knowing he had someone else in his heart, she had never dared to tell him, fearing it would only push him further away. She kept her feelings buried deep inside. Since the wedding, they had even slept in separate rooms. Julian had told her that when the timing was right, they could part ways amicably. It seemed that time was finally approaching. Julian left early that morning. By the time Chloe made it downstairs, he was already gone. Her head felt heavy and dizzy, likely a result of the cold shower the night before. Stumbling slightly, she found a thermometer and checked her temperature. She had a high fever. She had the driver take her to the hospital, where the doctor prescribed an IV drip. Since it wasn't a severe emergency, she sat in the waiting area for her treatment. Through a hazy fog, she thought she saw Julian. He was carrying a woman who had fainted in his arms, his face a mask of panic as he shouted for a doctor. The medical staff rushed over and took the woman away. In that brief moment, Chloe saw her face clearly. It was her, Julian's white whale, Mia. So that's how it is, Chloe thought. No wonder Julian had been at the hospital so early. No wonder he looked so worried. She turned her head away, unable to watch them any longer, as hot tears began to stream down her cheeks. "Chloe, Chloe, Chloe. Wake up." She had no idea when she had drifted off. Struggling to open her heavy eyelids, she saw Julian's face inches from hers. Was she hallucinating? He leaned in close and pressed his hand against her forehead. "The fever is gone. Chloe, how do you feel? Are you doing any better?" Out of the corner of her eyes, she spotted a figure in a white lab coat tidying up syringes and IV bags. She realized then that this wasn't a hallucination. "Much better," she whispered, nodding. Her body no longer felt burning hot. Instead, a profound sense of warmth enveloped her. She glanced down and discovered she was tucked firmly against Julian's chest, draped in his suit jacket. "Thank you. I'm fine now." Chloe sat up and pulled herself out of his embrace, handing the jacket back to him. Things that didn't belong to her eventually had to be returned to their rightful owners. For some reason, the moment she left his arms, a flicker of what looked like loneliness flashed through his eyes. She figured she must still be delirious from the fever and seeing things. Julian hesitated for a second before taking the jacket, but then he immediately draped it over her shoulders again. "Don't catch a cold." She offered a distant, polite smile and handed it back firmly. "There's no need, thank you. You should get back to your work. I'm heading home." She stood up and walked toward the door on trembling legs, but her wrist was suddenly caught in a tight grip. "Chloe, do we really have to be this formal with each other?" Julian stared at her intensely. "Isn't that what you said yourself? That we're just a couple on paper?" She replied nonchalantly. She remembered the day she found out she was entering a business marriage with Julian. He had come to find her, sitting across from her, with a cup of coffee in his hand. "Don't worry," he had said. "We'll just be a couple for show. If the time comes when we want to separate, we can go our own ways." At the time, she had still held a sliver of hope for the marriage, but hearing those words made her hands and feet go cold. She felt as though her entire body had been frozen solid. It took a long moment before she could force out a strained smile and agree. Because she was terrified he would despise her, she had tried her best to keep her distance every day since they wed. Even in public, she didn't dare get too close, even when his eyes seemed full of affection, a performance meant to maintain their facade for outsiders. She constantly reminded herself not to fall any deeper. She was afraid that when the day finally came, she wouldn't be able to let go. That day was fast approaching. She needed to maintain a proper distance to keep herself sane. "Julian? Chloe? Listen to me." "Julian, I don't have any strength left right now. Please, could you just not say anything to me for a moment?" She interrupted him. She pushed his hand away and turned, taking heavy steps forward. She kept telling herself, "Don't look back." But she had only managed 2 steps before her body felt weightless. Julian had swept her up into his arms. "Don't misunderstand," he muttered. "I just have too much energy and nowhere to spend it." He didn't give her a chance to refuse, ushering her into the car and driving her home before carrying her back to her room. "Get some rest. We'll talk slowly once you're feeling better." He turned and left the room. Julian didn't come home for several days after that. Word was he was constantly working overtime at the office. By the time Chloe had recovered her health, Julian's mother called. "Chloe, dear, is your illness any better?" "I'm fine now, Mom. Please don't worry." "That's wonderful." His mother sighed with relief. "Oh, by the way, I heard Julian has been working nothing but overtime lately. I'm worried about his health, so I had the cook simmer some nutritious soup. I'm afraid he won't drink it if I send it, though. Could you personally take it over to him?" Oh. Ever since Chloe and Julian married, his mother had always treated her with great kindness, and Chloe had always maintained the image of a perfect daughter-in-law. It was only delivering soup, so Chloe agreed. "That's my girl. Julian always listens to you best," Julian's mother said, sounding delighted. "With you there, I don't have to worry about him anymore. Chloe, you really are the perfect daughter-in-law." After hanging up, Chloe found that Mrs. Chang had already packed the soup. She carried the thermal container out the door and headed to the office. Everyone at the company recognized her, so she walked straight to Julian's private office. But as she pushed the door open, she saw him and Mia locked in a tight embrace. The sound of the door startled them, and both looked up at once. For a moment, all 3 of them stood frozen in a silent, awkward standoff. Recovering her senses, Chloe moved to close the door to give them privacy. But just as the door was about to shut, a large hand reached out and gripped it firmly. Julian let out a sigh, a flicker of helplessness crossing his face. "Did you forget what I taught you about how to handle people bothering your husband?" He had mentioned it once, but Chloe figured Mia wasn't exactly a stranger. While she was still processing this, Julian pulled her in front of Mia, took her hand, and used it to deliver a sharp slap across the other woman's face. "Targeting a married man? You really have no shame." Both Chloe and Mia were too stunned to react. They stood rooted to the spot, staring at Julian in disbelief. "Julian, what is going on?" Julian gently massaged Chloe's palm. "Does your hand hurt, honey?" Then he abruptly pulled his hand back, took out a wet wipe, and scrubbed his own skin repeatedly before doing the same for her. "I just got touched by something filthy. Don't let it get on you." He then gripped her hand tightly, interlacing their fingers, and thrust them toward Mia. "Look closely. I have a wife. Stop throwing yourself at me. If you make her misunderstand and get her upset, don't blame me for being heartless." His face was dark, his voice cold as ice. "Julian, don't you dare regret this." Mia choked back tears, gave Chloe a shove, and ran out the door. Julian caught Chloe just in time to keep her from falling. "Julian, you made her cry. Aren't you going to go after her?" Chloe pushed him slightly. "Why on earth would I go after her? But isn't she the girl who got away?" Your white whale? Don't you like her anymore? How could I ever like her? Julian rubbed his temples. Who told you that? No one, Chloe murmured, shaking her head. She turned to open the thermal container. You've been working so hard. Mrs. Chang made some soup for you. Drink it while it's hot. Suddenly, a pair of arms reached around from behind and pulled her into a warm embrace. Julian rested his head against her shoulder. I don't like her, and I don't like anyone else. If I have it my way, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Her heart skipped a beat, and her hand trembled, causing some soup to splash onto the table. Panicked, she grabbed some tissues to wipe it up, and in her clumsiness, her bag fell to the floor. Several sheets of A4 paper spilled out. Before she could scramble to pick them up, Julian's quick eyes caught them first. As he read the large print on the pages, his expression shifted instantly. Heh, are you really that eager to divorce me? Julian held the divorce papers in his hand, his voice full of accusation. Well, I thought since Mia was back, I should step aside, so I brought the papers with me. But now, Julian, let me explain. I don't want to hear it. Rip, rip. He tore the papers into shreds. This draft was poorly written anyway. I'll have someone draw up a new version later. I have a meeting. You go home first. Without looking back, he slammed the door and walked away. Chloe stood there, paralyzed, her fingernails digging deep into her palms. You idiot. I don't want to divorce you. I love you. So how could I ever want to leave you? She didn't go home. Instead, she sat in the office and waited for Julian to return. She wanted to wait for him so she could explain everything clearly. He had said he didn't like anyone else and wanted to be with her. She wanted to tell him that she felt exactly the same way. But she never got the chance to tell him. Before his secretary finished for the day, she noticed the lights were still on in the office. She walked in to turn them off and found Chloe sitting there, lost in thought. Oh, ma'am, why are you still here? Where's your boss? Is his meeting not over yet? Chloe asked. Mr. Sterling, the secretary hesitated. He left on an urgent business trip. Chloe immediately pulled out her phone and dialed his number. The number you have reached is currently unavailable. Please try again later. A cold, mechanical voice echoed from the other end. Ma'am, maybe you should head home first, the secretary suggested. Mr. Sterling is likely on a plane. Where did he go? The secretary shook her head. He left with Mr. Ward and didn't tell me. Mr. Ward was Julian's head secretary. The others were essentially just assistants. It was normal for them to be kept in the dark. Chloe then called Mr. Ward's number, but she received the same automated response. The next morning, Chloe returned home, feeling as though her soul had left her body. In her dreams, the scene of Julian divorcing her played on a loop. Her tears soaked the pillow. When she woke up the next day, her eyes were swollen and puffy. She tried Julian's number again. This time it went through, but it was Mr. Ward who answered. Ma'am, Mr. Sterling is a bit tied up right now. He said whatever it is can wait until he returns. Fine, I'll wait for him. Chloe hung up. She had been waiting for so long anyway. A few more days didn't matter. He would surely be back within a week at the most. A week later, he still hadn't returned. Every time she called, Mr. Kunser, Ward answered with the same excuse. Julian was busy. She decided to let it go. After all, he was a grown man. He couldn't stay hidden forever. Suddenly, a class group chat that had been silent for ages lit up. The class president mentioned that it had been a long time since everyone had seen each other and suggested a get-together over the weekend. Sarah sent Chloe a private message. Chloe, did you hear? Silas is back. I heard he's coming to the reunion too. Do you think there's any chance of an old flame rekindling? Silas, memories of their school days came rushing back. Years ago, Chloe had gathered all her courage to write a love letter, intending to confess her feelings to Julian. But then, she saw him and Mia walking out of the teacher's office side by side, both of them beaming with smiles. Julian and Mia really make a great couple, don't they? I heard they're dating. Shh, keep it down. They aren't ready to go public yet. A few girls nearby were whispering. Chloe's eyes drifted back to the pair. The golden boy and the beautiful girl, a match made in heaven. Phrases like that kept swirling in her head. She quietly tucked her love letter away and turned to leave. A familiar voice called out, stopping her in her tracks. Chloe, what are you doing here? She turned around. Julian was approaching with his long, confident strides. She hid her hands behind her back, clutching the letter. What are you hiding? Julian glanced behind her. She pressed the letter tight against her back. Nothing. Really? Julian raised an eyebrow. Hey, look over there. Isn't that your homeroom teacher? Instinctively, Chloe turned around. In that split second, Julian snatched the letter from her hand. Give it back, she cried, reaching for it. Julian held the letter high above his head, well out of her reach. A love letter? Who were you planning on giving this to? There seemed to be a hint of expectation in his eyes. Was he hoping she liked someone else? Chloe lowered her head and bit her lip. None of your business. Fine, if you won't tell me, I'll just have to tell your parents. The Sterlings and her family were old friends, and their relationship was very close. Julian was a year older than her, mature and steady. Her parents had asked him to look after her and had constantly reminded her to focus entirely on her studies. She absolutely could not let them find out about this. If I tell you, will you keep it a secret? Of course. Julian nodded. Chloe pointed randomly. Her finger landed straight on Silas, who was standing not far away. He had overheard their conversation. Chloe? Silas asked, surprised. Do you actually like me? Silas's face was filled with visible excitement. Even before that day, Chloe had heard rumors that he liked her, but since he had never said anything directly, she hadn't paid it much mind. This is amazing, Chloe. Actually, I like you too, Silas said, stepping toward her with a radiant smile. Just as he got within a foot of her, Julian suddenly lunged forward, shielding her and blocking Silas's path. She's a student right now. Chloe's parents don't allow her to date, Julian said firmly. Stay away from her. Don't go ruining her education. It's fine. Both Chloe and I have great grades. We can improve together, right? Right, Chloe? Silas gave her a playful wink. Julian's expression darkened even further. Chloe, if you don't want your parents to find out, focus on your studies and stop thinking about this nonsense. I understand, Chloe stammered, lowering her head and bolting away. For some reason, rumors began to swirl after that, claiming she and Silas were dating. In reality, she had explained things to Silas, and he hadn't pressured her. They remained just normal classmates. Eventually, they pretended to break up, and the gossip died down. Because of this, everyone else believed they had been a passionate couple who only drifted apart because the stars didn't align. No, I don't, Chloe quickly typed and sent the message. The reunion was scheduled for the weekend. Sarah, hearing that the guy she liked would be there, insisted on dragging Chloe along. Since she had nothing else to do, Chloe agreed to go. Chloe, over here! Sarah had arrived early and waved her over. As Chloe approached, Sarah handed her a glass of orange juice. Both he and Silas are still single, she whispered, leaning close to Chloe's ear. She? Chloe followed Sarah's gaze to Elias, a sophisticated and scholarly-looking man sitting across from them. Noticing their stares, Elias raised his glass and offered a silent toast. Sarah liked Elias, Chloe knew that. Back then, however, Elias was solely focused on his studies and had turned her down. In that regard, Sarah was much braver than Chloe. At least she had dared to confess to the person she loved. Silas arrived 2 minutes late. Sorry everyone, traffic was a nightmare. As soon as he walked through the door, his eyes locked onto Chloe, and he flashed her a smile. Attorney Miller, you're late. That's a 3-drink penalty. Someone teased. Fair enough, Silas replied, draining 3 glasses of wine in one go. Afterward, he walked straight toward Chloe. Chloe, it's been a long time. Long time no see. Chloe casually rubbed the ring on her 4th finger. Whether he still liked her or not, she needed him to know she was married. Some boundaries had to be maintained. Sure enough, the moment he saw the ring, the light in his eyes dimmed considerably. I haven't had the chance to congratulate you on your marriage. Does he treat you well? He treats me very well. As a husband, Julian was more than adequate. If he couldn't make it home, he'd let her know in advance. He prepared thoughtful gifts for her birthday. When she was sick, he stayed by her side. He even prepared heating pads and brown sugar water during her monthly cycle. Silas ended up drinking quite a bit. By the time they left, his steps were unsteady. Seeing him about to trip, Chloe reached out to steady him. Chloe. Silas couldn't hold himself up and leaned his head against her shoulder. Chloe? A voice full of fury erupted from behind them. Julian marched over, grabbed Silas, and shoved him toward Mr. Ward. Chloe, we aren't even divorced yet. Are you really in that much of a hurry? His hands gripped her shoulders so tightly, it felt as if he wanted to crush them. Where have you been? Why didn't you answer my calls? Why wouldn't you give me even a single chance to explain? The moment she saw him, all the longing and grievances she had been harboring came rushing back, and her tears began to fall uncontrollably. Chloe, please don't cry. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you just now. Julian immediately grew flustered. He let go of her shoulders and cupped her face, using his thumbs to gently brush away her tears. She swatted his hands away and pounded her fists against his chest. Julian, you jerk! You let me stay misunderstood for so long, and you wouldn't even give me a chance to explain. If it weren't for the fact that I love you, I would have left you a long time ago. What? What did you just say? Julian lifted her face, forcing her to look him straight in the eye. Chloe, did you just say you love me? Is that true? His eyes were like brilliant stars, shimmering with an intense light. No, it's not, she said, turning her head away. You're such a silly girl, Chloe. I heard everything. He gently pulled her into his arms. Chloe, could you say it one more time? I want to hear it. She wrapped her arms around him, returning the embrace. Julian, loving you is so exhausting. I don't want to love you anymore. Her tears broke through like a collapsing dam, as if she wanted to cry out every ounce of bitterness she had felt over the last few years. All right, Chloe, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I was just too much of a coward. I was afraid that telling you would push you away, and I ended up making you suffer for so long. It's all on me. You can hit me or yell at me as much as you want, just don't be sad anymore, okay? Julian held her tightly, as if he feared she would vanish if he loosened his grip for even a second. So, you've been misunderstood for that long? My silly Chloe, do you have any idea how much my heart broke when you said that love letter was for Silas? When they returned home, Julian pulled her into his lap, cradling her. Humph, who told you to let me misunderstand? Who told you not to keep your distance from other people? Who told you to? Her mouth was suddenly silenced. Julian kissed her softly several times before finally letting go. Chloe, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. If only I had confessed sooner, we wouldn't have missed out on each other for so long. I can't put all the blame on you, she whispered, reaching up to wrap her arms around his neck. All the time we missed in the past, we'll just have to make up for it slowly from now on. She leaned in and kissed his lips. After a moment of surprise, he took hold of the back of her head, shifting from passive to active, claiming her with a fierce, desperate passion. Then they both cried, their tears mingling until they could no longer tell whose was whose. At Julian's mother's insistence, Mrs. Chang continued to cook nutritious soup for Julian every day, and Chloe remained in charge of delivering it. As she arrived at the company entrance, a voice called out to her. Mrs. Sterling, it was Mia. What are you doing here? Chloe asked. Because of this woman, she and Julian had spent years at odds. Naturally, her attitude toward Mia was far from friendly. Can we talk? Mia held her head high, brimming with a confidence that made it seem as if she were the rightful wife. We have nothing to talk about. Chloe straightened her back, telling herself not to be intimidated. After all, she was the legally wed Mrs. Sterling, and the true woman in Julian's heart. Don't you want to know what really happened? Mia opened her phone to her photo gallery. An image of Julian holding her flashed before Chloe's eyes. It was the photo from the hospital that day. Julian had already explained it. That morning, he had heard Chloe had a high fever and had rushed to the hospital in a panic. Mia had appeared out of nowhere and grabbed him, refusing to let him go. When he tried to shove her off, she had faked a fainting spell, leaving him with no choice but to call for a doctor to take her away. Chloe curled her lip. I'm so sorry to disappoint you, but I was actually there that day. I witnessed your shamelessness with my own eyes, Miss Miller. Miss Miller, there's no need for you to come here personally to remind me just how shameless you can be, Chloe said coldly. To think you'd actually dare to try and seduce my husband right in front of me. Mia's face turned deathly pale with rage. Do you really think Julian's feelings for you are real? You and him are nothing more than a business arrangement, a bond of convenience. She leaned in, a smirk returning to her lips as if she'd suddenly remembered her trump card. But the one who isn't loved is the true interloper. So in reality, you are the third wheel. No, you aren't even worth being called that, Chloe snapped back without hesitation. Because my husband has never even had eyes for you. Bravo, well said. Applause erupted from behind her. Julian was standing a short distance away, looking at Chloe with a radiant, proud smile. He jogged over and took her hand. My wife speaks so beautifully. If it's well said, then by all means, say a little more. His tone shifted instantly as he looked toward Mia. But with a woman this shameless, there's really nothing left to say. He pulled a small notebook from his pocket and tucked it into Chloe's hand. Then, gripping her hand firmly, he used it to swing a powerful slap across Mia's face. With people like this, it's better to just let your hands do the talking, he muttered. He then gently blew on Chloe's fingers, as if a speck of filthy dust had landed on them that shouldn't be there. Mia, if I ever see you trying to drive a wedge between me and my wife again, you'd better watch your back. His voice was bone-chillingly cold. Mia couldn't help but shudder. In that moment, Chloe finally understood why she hadn't dared to confess all those years ago. Toward those he didn't care for, Julian was utterly ruthless. But she loved it, because she was the one he loved, and he would never, ever treat her that way. Julian led her by the hand toward his office. Along the way, employees stared at them in shock. Chloe tried to pull her hand back, but Julian only tightened his grip. Julian, stop being so clingy in front of people, she whispered once the door had clicked shut, trying to push him away. He simply swept her up and sat her on his lap. I want them to know there isn't a single crack between us for anyone else to crawl through. He buried his face against her. Chloe, I missed you so much. You say that as if we haven't been together, she teased, stroking his hair. If I don't see you for even a minute, I miss you. I want to be with you every single second. He nuzzled against her cheek like a puppy begging for affection. All right. Drink your soup first, she said, patting his head and unscrewing the thermal flask. Chloe, do you know what this specific soup is meant to nourish? What? You tell me. He slid his hand under her shirt, slowly exploring. Chloe, do you really think I need any more nourishment? As it turned out, he didn't need any nourishment at all. Chloe was so exhausted that she spent the next several days just lounging around the house. Feeling bored, she scrolled through her phone until a push notification popped up. CEO of Sterling Group suspected of having secret child? The accompanying image was the photo of Julian carrying Mia at the hospital. Chloe didn't even have to guess who had leaked it. Does this woman have no sense of self-preservation? Is she not afraid Julian will tear her apart? Chloe didn't want to deal with it, but the comments below were an eyesore. My ship is real. After all these years, the lovers are finally reunited. Chloe is such a homewrecker. Hurry up and get out of the way. Don't separate my little leopard and his kitten. They've been a pair since high school. It's all Chloe's fault they missed out on each other for so long. Chloe, get lost. Move over and let them be. Just as she was about to type a rebuttal to the comments, her phone rang. It was Sarah. Chloe, are you okay? Those comments are all from paid bots. Don't take them to heart. Elias and I are already handling it. Thanks, Sarah. Over the years, whenever something went wrong, Sarah was always the first person to stand up and support her. Why are you being so formal with me? Chloe, promise me something, Sarah said, her voice turning serious. You and Julian went through so much to finally be together. Don't let these baseless rumors ruin what you have. I know. I'm not the same person I used to be, Chloe replied. Before, there was a lack of trust between her and Julian, but now they had reinforced that foundation with something far more solid. Chloe, look quickly, check Julian's social media. Chloe opened the app and saw 2 topics climbing straight to the top of the trending list. Julian Sterling responds and #Julian Sterling eviscerates the first love. She clicked on Julian's profile and found a very long post. He had meticulously detailed everything over the years, including the fact that back in school, the rumors of him and Mia being together were started by people Mia had hired. Even the gossip about Chloe and Silas dating had been spread by Mia to drive a wedge between them. Her goal was to make them misunderstand each other so that Julian would eventually turn to her. At the end of the post was a confession from Julian. To my beloved wife, I'm so sorry. Please accept this long overdue confession. If I had been braver and ignored everything back then, perhaps we wouldn't have missed out on so many years. But the rest of our lives is a very long time, and I have plenty of time to make it up to you. I promise to hold your hand until we are old and gray. Chloe left a comment below. My heart is as yours is. I will never betray this love. Julian went through and replied to every single person who had insulted her. By the time everything was handled, it was very late. Julian dragged his tired body over to her, smelling faintly of alcohol, with a slight flush on his face. Have you been drinking? Just a little. He rested his head on her shoulder and wrapped his arms around her. Honey, I'm sorry for everything you had to endure. I won't let anyone bully you ever again. His kiss slowly descended upon her, and she let herself drift away with him. Silas was preparing to go abroad. Before leaving, he asked to meet one last time. Chloe and Julian arrived hand in hand. Silas's gaze fell on their interlaced fingers, and a flash of disappointment crossed his face before he forced a smile. Chloe, seeing you happy is enough for me. Don't worry, I'm not like Mia. I won't cling to something that isn't mine. I'm moving overseas, and I probably won't be coming back. You two have to stay happy, okay? We will, Julian said, gently kissing the back of Chloe's hand. This petty man was clearly marking his territory. Safe travels, Chloe said simply, and then she left with Julian. If they didn't leave soon, she was afraid Julian's glare would tear Silas apart. As for Mia, she had lost her mind and had been committed to a mental asylum abroad. Without Julian's explicit consent, she would never be able to leave. The internet trolls who had attacked Chloe were either apologizing or facing legal penalties. Julian didn't let a single one of them off. If you want to bully my wife, you'll have to see if I agree first. Julian put his phone down and looked at Chloe. All right, Chloe. From now on, nothing will ever stand in our way. She nodded, and the look in his eyes quickly turned deep and intense. Julian's perspective. Chloe and I have known each other since we were kids. In my memories, she was always a soft, incredibly adorable little girl. From a very young age, I started having feelings for her that were anything but ordinary. Julian couldn't help but internally curse himself. He felt like a total beast for having such thoughts. But as they grew older, these feelings surged within him like violent, rolling waves. Terrified of frightening her, he constantly fought to suppress his emotions. Every time the young girl saw him, her eyes would sparkle like the stars in the sky. "Julian," she would call out to him, her voice as sweet as honey. "Don't call me big brother," he told her. He was only a year older than her, but he knew that once he was labeled the big brother, he could never be anything else. He had to nip the idea of him being a sibling figure in the bud immediately. The girl would pout, looking incredibly aggrieved. "Be good now. I'm not your brother," he'd say, ruffling her soft hair. She was so precious. For some reason, he had a lingering feeling that she might actually like him back. He wondered if he was just being narcissistically delusional. As it turned out, it truly was a delusion. When she walked toward his classroom carrying a love letter, he had foolishly assumed it was for him. He never expected it was meant for a boy in her own grade. He scrutinized the boy from head to toe. Is he as tall as me? Is he as handsome as me? Is he as mature as me? And the boy had the nerve to say they could improve together. Trying to start a romance right under his nose? Not a chance. What? They're actually together? Ah ha ha. Oh, they broke up already. Ha ha ha. It was exactly as he thought. Immature puppy love never lasted. But Chloe seemed genuinely heartbroken. To cheer her up, he bought her hawthorn candy and cotton candy every day. She had a massive sweet tooth, though her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Winston, never let her eat too much. Despite the treats, she still didn't seem happy. In fact, she began to intentionally avoid him. He couldn't understand why. What had he even done? One day, he happened to overhear a conversation between her and Sarah, and he finally discovered the reason. "Chloe," Sarah had asked, "if someone liked you, but you didn't like them back, and that person kept hanging around you all day, what would you do?" "People like that are the worst," Chloe replied. "I hope I never meet someone like that. If I do, I'll stay as far away from them as possible." Julian froze. Had she realized he liked her? Was she saying that specifically for him to hear? No wonder she had been avoiding him. If that was the case, he decided it was better never to tell her how he felt. He didn't want her to hate him. Being as they were now was enough. At least he could still see her often and talk and laugh with her. The business marriage was actually his idea. Deep down, he was selfish. He wanted to bind her to his side. Even if it was just a marriage on paper, he wanted to see her every day. He couldn't stand the thought of watching her marry another man. To his surprise, she actually agreed. It made sense, he figured. The person she loved had moved overseas. Perhaps she felt there was no longer any hope for them, and in a moment of despair, decided it didn't matter who she married. However, more than wanting her by his side, he wanted her to be happy. That was why he went to see her and told her that when the timing was right, they could separate at any time. What he really meant was that if that guy ever came back and she wanted to leave, he would let her go. Knowing she had to marry him clearly didn't make her happy. It was only after he promised her an exit that she forced a smile. He told himself he would cherish whatever time they had together, and if the day ever came when she truly wanted to leave, he would choose to let go. Every day after the wedding, fearing she would discover his true feelings, he endured the agony of pretending he didn't care about her. It was only in front of others that he could express his love for her without any restraint. But when Julian learned that Silas was about to return to the country, he was anything but okay. He used a business gala as an excuse to drink until he was wasted. He had always made a habit of sneaking into Chloe's room late at night while she was fast asleep just to look at her, using the alcohol as a shield for his boldness. He gently touched her face. She was so beautiful. He wanted nothing more than to kiss those lips. There was a part of him that wanted to throw caution to the wind, to pin her down and claim her as his own so she could never leave him. But he knew that if he actually did that, she would hate him for the rest of her life. He didn't demand that she love him, but he certainly didn't want her to hate him. He suppressed those urges and walked out, forcing himself to take several cold showers just to calm down. As for Mia's return, Julian actually had no idea. She meant nothing to him, and he couldn't care less what she did. However, he had underestimated her shamelessness. When she dared to fake a fainting spell in his arms, he truly wanted to just toss her aside. Fine, he thought, finding Chloe is the priority. Don't cause more trouble. He hurriedly called for doctors and nurses to take her away. But why was his Chloe acting so distant? Was it because Silas was coming back? He didn't care who the guy was. She was still his wife for now. Then, Mia had the nerve to intercept him at the office, even sneaking all the way into his private quarters. He fired the secretary who let her in the very next day. Why wouldn't she just leave him alone? And why did his wife have to see it? He couldn't let Chloe misunderstand. He grabbed her hand and used it to give Mia a resounding slap. Damn it, he thought afterward, I got too worked up. He had forgotten that doing that would make his wife's hand hurt. And Mia was so filthy, he couldn't let that filth get on Chloe. Then came the divorce papers. Chloe was so eager to divorce him, but he didn't want it at all. He had to find an excuse to stall. He knew she was trying to convince him to sign those papers. Not listening. Not listening, I'm not listening. He used a business trip as an excuse to run away. As long as he could drag it out one more day without a divorce, she was still his wife. But then he heard the news. She had taken advantage of his absence to sneak out and meet Silas. Silas, that lowlife. How dare he lean his head on her? Julian grabbed him by the collar and tossed him to Mr. Ward to deal with. He considered himself a saint for not throwing the guy directly onto the hard ground. Chloe, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Every time she cried, his anger vanished instantly. He became a clumsy mess trying to comfort her. What did she just say? She said she liked him? He hadn't misheard, had he? No, he definitely hadn't. It turned out she had been secretly in love with him all along. He was filled with a killing regret. Why hadn't he confessed sooner? They had wasted so much beautiful time for nothing. But it was okay. They had a long future ahead of them. He would use the rest of his life to make it up to her. Whoever dared to ruin their relationship would find no mercy from him. Mia, that crazy woman, actually tried to hurt Chloe again. She was insane. He had her shipped off to a mental asylum overseas. Without his permission, she would never set foot outside again. From now on, no one would ever hurt his Chloe. If they tried, he wouldn't hold back. Chloe, having you in this world is the most wonderful thing. Our future will be even more beautiful. Let's walk the rest of this life hand in hand.
What lesson did you learn from this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching on Tiny Diary. See you in the next video.